So congratulations that we all of us has till now completed our six uh, chapters, or the first portion of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that's called Karma Yoga. And now it starts the most important section of Bhagavad Gita, that's called Bhakti Yoga. And Bhakti Yoga, that the six sets, the 666. We have total 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita, and the first 6 chapters that describes about Karma Yoga, and the middle 6 chapter describes the Bhakti Yoga that we have discussed in our beginning of our class, beginning of our course, that how the middle 6 chapter is just like the inside jewel of the treasure chest. So it's like treasure, khazano ka khazana. So what we say. So that's we are about to reveal. So please get ready. Please be ready with notebook, pen, presence of mind, and a lot of love. Open your heart to bring the bhakti into the heart. Okay. So now I'll quickly go ahead with the slide. So Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7. Yeah. So yeah, just put this. So this is all things we will be discussing. We will be discussing our recap of chapter 6, then chapter overview, chapter content, life lessons, and also after that, chapter summary. So what we discussed so far in chapter 6, and prior to chapter 6, we had discussing about whole setup of Karma Yoga, how Krishna is actually bringing the consciousness of setting the scene to present Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Yoga. The essence of whole Bhagavad Gita is Bhakti Yoga. To present that, he is making the whole setup. From beginning, he is talking about Sankhya Yoga. Who are we? Practically, we are not just this body, but we are souls. And after that, he is telling that how everybody must everybody must do sacrifices if he is really admitting himself into the society of human beings. He must do sacrifices. So sacrifice is what makes a human being a human being. Then we see that how any activity which is not done for the satisfaction of Supreme Lord Narayana or Vishnu or Yajna, that binds one in this in the cycle of repeated birth and death. And the best way is to act, and at the same time we should be detached from the fruits. That's called karma yoga. Or when it comes yoga means that fruit must be connected with the supreme entity, supreme brahmana, supreme godhead, supreme absolute truth, whatever we say. So then it becomes karma yoga. And after that we discussed what is called dhyana yoga in 6th chapter. So that's what we are going to just do quick recap of 6th chapter. So from first to 9th sloka, we saw that how one can go from lower section of yoga ladder to the upper section of yoga ladder. And the most important prerequisite of ascending to yoga ladder is controlling the mind. Okay, so without controlling the mind, doing simply some gymnastic activities or some exercises is actually not going to give any fruit of yoga. So then we saw what's called from 10th sloka till 32nd sloka, what is called ashtanga yoga. Ashtanga, when it is told ashtanga means ashta plus anga, means 8 limbs system of yoga. Okay, so 8 progressive limbs of ashtanga yoga. In that we saw internal and external adjustments. 4 are for more external adjustments and 4 are for more internal adjustments. If you could remember yama, niyama, asana, pranayam till 4, it's more of external adjustments to get internal adjustment. What's called, that's controlling the mind and focusing on the supreme absolute truth or Narayana. Okay, so that's what the internal adjustment that starts with pratyahar, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Okay, so ultimately we saw that controlling the mind with deliberate endeavor is the very, very important factor in in pursuit of getting any success in this Ashtanga yoga system. Okay, so from 33rd to 36th sloka, we discussed key of all ranks of yoga. Again, Krishna is telling to control the mind, control the mind, control the mind. So in that we saw ever process, this controlling the mind control process becomes very, very difficult, seems to be very difficult for Arjuna. And in this way, he tells that it's not possible. It's not possible for me, Krishna. I cannot do this. I cannot do this. I can control the wind, but I cannot control my mind. So then Krishna tells, yes, you can do it by practice and detachment. So abhyasa and tyaga. So we saw there are four do's and four don'ts. The four abhyasa activities what we must perform, and four don'ts means what's the tyaga. So that we must do. The four do's are A, B, C, D. A for association, good association. B for books, reading books like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. C for chanting the holy name. D for taking sanctified food. Okay, so now from 37 to 45th sloka we discussed what is the destination of unsuccessful aspirant of us unsuccessful aspirants of this yoga system. Okay, of course there could be many people there could be are very much chances of like getting deviated, getting fall down while practicing this type of yoga. So what will happen to them? Arjuna asks. Krishna tells, nothing bad is going to happen with them, Arjuna, be sure. They will never get into misfortune. Even though they fall down in the beginning of this process, they will surely ascend to the heavens, and after coming down from heavens, when they have exhausted their credits, still they will be not be the losers. They will be taking birth in very aristocratic families. And again, from there where they have left the progress of yoga, they will start automatically without much push. Okay, so and for those who have fallen after long run, I mean long practice, so they will get rare birth. Okay, so maybe somebody of you, or almost all of you, could be one of those rare souls, those who are there in Bhagavad Gita course till now. It's really, I like to congratulate you once again, that it's really required a great patience to continue on with this Bhagavad Gita course, which is actually uh, going to give us eternal credit, eternal uh, credit, unlimited, like abound. You cannot imagine. Okay, so that's very much greatly appreciable. Your all of your endeavor to continue on with this Bhagavad Gita course. That's why it is called. So many books are there in this world. So many books are there, and informations are filled in those all books. But Bhagavad Gita is not about the information, but it's about transformation. uh, what transformation for good. Okay, so now from 46 to 47 sloka we had discussion about bhakti yogi. So how bhakti yogi is topmost among all the yogis, karma yogis, jnana yogis, and dhyana yogis, bhakti yogis. Bhakti yogi is the topmost. Okay, now Krishna has said that Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. Now he starts from the 7th chapter. What is called Bhakti Yoga? And prior to that, he describes about his own position, his own energies, and how he is actually manifested throughout the whole universe. Okay, so this 7th chapter is actually divided into 5 sections. Okay, so from first to third sloka, there is importance of hearing described. Okay, from 4th to 12th sloka there is importance, it's mentioned how Krishna is the supreme controller with all his pervasive energies. Okay, Krishna describes all energies. Okay, then from 13th to 19th sloka it's mentioned why one should take shelter of Krishna. Okay, there, because in Bhakti Yoga it starts with hearing, and then subsequently things build up. Yes, we will be discussing as well that how in Ashtanga Yoga there are 8 limbs, 8 consecutive stages of the system of Ashtanga Yoga system. Similarly, in Bhakti Yoga also there is some system. Okay, so we shall be discussing also very nicely from 20th sloka till 25th sloka. There is discussion about demigods worship or different controllers worship. There are many people they do that, as well as those who are attached to the impersonal concept of absolute truth. Impersonal concept of absolute truth, that's called impersonalists. Okay, There are many people there, they are such. So what is there? Okay, what is their situation? And at last, from 26th till 30th sloka, we shall be discussing how one can be situated in devotion across delusion or across any type of illusion. Okay, so now let's go ahead. Now this is section 1, importance of hearing. Okay, so this is the first sloka. I'd like to request you all that please take this opportunity to recite together this very wonderful sloka. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Sakta Manah Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asansayam Shamagram Mam Yatha Gyasasi Tat Shrinu. So translation goes like this. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from all doubts. Okay. So here Krishna is telling the last word, Srinu. Srinu means just hear. Tat Srinu, that you hear. So this particular word is very, very important for all of us. So when we are actually going to get knowledge about anything, so here Krishna is telling about his own knowledge, right? Like suppose someone very like strange person, a stranger, one stranger, if you want to know the full knowledge about that person, like suppose here we have so many of us, like here is suppose Dipti Ranjan Bed Bak. There is one of our devotee, Dipti Ranjan Bed Bak. So if somebody asks that what is the favorite food of Dipti Ranjan Bed Bak, okay, so if you are able to see, there is a person Dipti Ranjan Bed Bak. So maybe if you ask Kaveshri, she can say that no, she can speculate. Okay, there could be something, maybe chapati, sabji, or rice, or whatever. Kunal Mehta can say no, maybe pizza. Malhari Barode can say that no, maybe idli. Muralidharan can say that no, maybe tomato rice or something like that. So everybody can speak. Everybody can speculate in their own way that what could be the favorite food item of Dipti Ranjan. But what is the best way to know? Just go and ask him. Just know about his favorite item from the person who is actually authorized to know or give knowledge from Dipti Ranjan. Okay, so similarly, we have two ways of gaining knowledge about the absolute truth, or else this about this world as well. So, what are those two ways we must be discussing? This is very, very important concept for all of us. This is from Vedanta. So, please keep patience and please go ahead with me. So, yeah. So, there are two ways. So, first is called ascending process and second is called descending process. Okay, so there are two processes for gaining knowledge. Okay, so ways of gaining knowledge: ascending process and descending process. So when it comes ascending, means going from down to up, 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, like this. It's called ascending. Descending means going coming up, from up to down, like 10 9 8 7, like this. So what is that? So when we tell about ascending process, means trying to get knowledge from our limited senses, trying to figure out how it could be, without going to the authority or higher authority, without going and receiving knowledge from the higher authority. In ascending process, we take full help of our own senses. That's called seeing is believing. So sense perception or mental perception. Okay, so what's wrong with this ascending process? That in sense perception we have five senses, and we use those five senses to acquire knowledge about particular thing. So what is the what is the difficulty with this sense perception is that because our these senses are imperfect. All of our senses, the five knowledge acquiring senses, all of us, we have five knowledge acquiring senses almost. We should have we have nose, we have tongue, we have eyes, we have ears, and we have skins. So these are five knowledge acquiring senses. Through this only we can perceive any type of knowledge. If we close these all things, practically we don't have any access to anything, right? So what's problem with them? if you try to get knowledge through these 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the first problem is that these senses are imperfect. They have limitations. They have limitations. Eyes, they cannot see after 10 kilometers. Everything is just blind, or it seems like horizon is touching. I mean, you find horizon and there is nothing called horizon. Okay, we simply see that sky is touching the ground, but there is never a time, there is never a place where sky touches the ground. Okay, so it seems like that. But why it seems like that? Because our eyes having limitations. Our eyes can only see the visible range of electromagnetic radiations from 7 nanometer, 4 nanometer to 7 nanometer, if I am not false. So like this, we have our nose also have limitations in the when nose starts running, then we don't find any smell. Similarly, our ears from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz only we can hear. After that we cannot hear. Our touch also, it cannot able, it's not able to perceive anything more than particular temperature. So in this way we find that all our senses are actually having this type of imperfections, and because of that what happens, we get illusioned, and then we commit mistakes. Because we get illusioned, we commit mistakes, and after when we commit mistakes, we try to hide those mistakes. That's called cheating. So all of us, everybody, that's what called err. To err is human. If we are human beings, we must do commit mistakes. Okay, to err is human. So all of us, whether he's Einstein or whether he's Darwin or anybody, everybody have this propensity, these 5 defects. Because of that, what happens, whatever knowledge that comes, that is always tainted, inbuilt inbuilt with some inabilities, or something will be, I mean, wrong there. Okay, so this is the problem with ascending process. Then what's the way of gaining the perfect knowledge? So there is descending process. So what is that descending process? Descending process means knowing about that particular thing from the authority of thing. Okay, like suppose I have this particular laptop in front of me, my personal computer Asus. Okay, so it has a particular model number, everything. So if I want to know about this, so I must immediately go and open this, and I can find out how much GB RAM, how much GB this processor is there, how much graphic card is there, how much of ROM is there. So everybody I can just figure out. But I cannot figure out something more than that. But if really I want to get full knowledge about this laptop, then the best way is just go and check out this particular computer's manual, and will find everything, because the producer has created the manual as well. Okay, so this is called descending process. As I have told you before, only all of you, that how we can figure out someone's favorite food by just simply asking him. That's called getting knowledge from authority. So hearing from authority beyond 4 defects, those authorities who are beyond 4 defects, they only can give us the perfect knowledge. And that person who is beyond 4 defect, he is called supreme Godhead. Okay, he having no limitation with his senses. Angani yasa sakalendra vittimanti, spotless sound representation of God. And that Veda, which is called the treasure house, the complete encyclopedia of all the knowledge, called Vedas, and that is nothing but the exhalation or the manifestation of Supreme Lord Narayana or Krishna. Okay, so if we are getting knowledge from there in the descending process, then we are perfectly sure to get perfect knowledge without getting cheated and getting illusioned. Okay, so this is the concept, very important to understand, that descending process is always better than ascending process. Okay, so now let's go to next slide. Lord Krishna is going to impart knowledge. Now, how Krishna is telling this descending knowledge is perfect. That in particular, this sloka, second sloka, Krishna says that this knowledge, Arjuna, I am going to tell you, it's perfectly complete. Samagram. Okay. And also he tells what's called samagram means it's not about simply about matter. Like usually people, they know about matter, and they have maybe some departments of psychophysical nature to research and study. They may have some different departments, but hardly there is a department found in this world in any university where supreme godhead is researched and taught about, and spirit soul is researched. Hardly find. So most of the people, they get knowledge about M only. So in previous session we've discussed what is called complete knowledge, called knowledge about MSc. Anybody has done MSc, means knowledge of matter, knowledge of spirit, and knowledge of controller of both. That person only can be called perfectly knowledgeable person. Otherwise, we could have degrees, but not the knowledge. Okay, so this knowledge is called complete knowledge, samagram, that Krishna is going to reveal in this 7th chapter. It's free from all doubts. If this knowledge we will have, then all the doubts will be just simply get washed off. So it will increase the attachment to Krishna. Okay, this is the third component of the complete knowledge, as well of material world and of transcendental nature, that's we have discussed already. And it will let you know about Govinda. So now let's go to life lesson for all of us from this section, is that for getting perfect knowledge we must hear it through descending process. All the authentic outlets of knowledge is having source in Krishna alone, and knowledge must bring more and more attachment toward Krishna. So this is actually the test for knowledge. Knowledge must come in descending process from authorized outlets. Those 4 authorized outlets, if you could remember, in 4th chapter we discussed there are 4 authorized outlets of knowledge which is still existing in this world. One is coming from Brahma, another is coming from Lord Shiva, another is coming from Chatuskumaras, and 4th one is coming from Mata Lakshmi. But all of them are actually directly connected with Supreme Lord Narayana or Krishna. Okay, so these 4 streams of knowledge, authorized streams or the line of knowledge, one can get the complete knowledge. Okay, so the complete knowledge must bring more and more attachment toward Supreme Lord Krishna. Okay, now what is the another beauty of this process of hearing is, hearing is the one of the most important aspect, as well as the first and foremost step to bhakti. As we discussed in 6th chapter, there are 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. Similarly, there are 9 limbs of Bhakti Yoga. Okay, and all of them are equally powerful. Okay, in Ashtanga Yoga we saw that yama is a process. To come to niyama is a process. To come to asana is a process. To come to pranayama is a process. To do pratyahara is the process. To do dhyana, then to do dharana, then ultimately to come to samadhi. But after that, what? After that, one must come to bhakti. Okay, but bhakti is so simple that everything starts from Sravanam. Okay, that's what you will see: Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. So there are 9 limbs. Okay, and all of them are equally important. You don't need to do all those things. Just hearing is as equal as any other limbs like Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, anything. Okay, so this is the beauty of this Sravanam process. Now, this knowledge what we are going to get is not just any ordinary knowledge. Okay, Lord Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita that bahunam manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yadati siddhe yatatam api siddhanam kaschid mam veti tatvatah. Oh my dear friend Arjuna, there are many people around this globe, crowds and unlimited trillions of people are there. Among them, very hardly few people that try to get knowledge and try to get siddhis or perfection. They try to perfect themselves. They try to figure out why we are suffering, why we are taking birth, why we have to die, why we are getting old. There are very few people, very few intelligent people. And among those very few intelligent people, some people they get perfected. Some people, not all. Very few people they get perfected. And among those all very few people they get perfected, very few people among them can know about me. Very few people can know about me. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschid mam vetti tattvata. Among them, very few would be there who would be able to know me tattvataha, nicely, perfectly. Okay, so life lesson from all of us is that grab we must grab the opportunity, the rarest opportunity to know Krishna through devotional service, as it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And that particular knowledge about Krishna is going to get revealed by Krishna himself. Okay, from 4th sloka to 12th sloka, Krishna tells how he is supreme controller with his all pervasive energies. So he tells about everything, whatever visible, invisible in front of us. He tells that there are 8 energies of mind, Arjuna. They are my external energy, which is coming from me alone. Okay, so Krishna's external energies, in which Krishna tells, Bhumi Rapo Analo Vayu Kham Mano Buddhi Revacha Ahankaram Miti Yanme Bhinna Me Prakriti Rashtadha. So, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. This is all by which the whole world is actually made up of. That's where we're able to see. Earth, we are able to see. Water, we are able to see. Fire, we are able to see. Air, we are able to see. Ether means the sky, we are able to see. Mind, we are not able to see, but it's there. Intelligence, we are not able to see, but it's there. And there is ego, which is also there with everyone. Everybody thinks about themselves to be something, to someone. Okay, everybody, even dog also, the thing that they're having some, they're great. So this is called false ego. This all, whatever things we are able to see is actually made up of these 8 things. But inside this there is one special entity that's called soul, and that Krishna tells, that soul is my internal energy. Krishna tells, my that is my internal energy, who is actually manipulating these 8 external energies. Okay, so we are all souls. We are all souls and internal energy of the Lord. We are supposed to control the matter. This is all matter only, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, having no sense. They're having no independence, but actually we are manipulated by them. We are sometimes being overpowered by them. Why? Because we have forgotten the supreme controller of both of us, external energy as well as internal energy, and his name is Krishna. Okay, so now let's go ahead. So what Krishna tells, that I am Krishna. He tells that Krishna is the origin and dissolution of all of that. He is the origin of external energy as well as dissolution. So what happens? He creates the whole material universe in with a combination of external and internal energy. Here, what you are able to see here, there's 8 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And here is the internal energy, the soul, the we ourself, the self. So the soul is actually having got embedded and have been embedded into this matter, I mean this external energy. And in this way this soul is conditioned. So, and it's very differently or very pathetically have been uh, perfectly captured into this universe, particular universe that you will see. And then 7 sloka, Lord Krishna says, Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam shutre mani gana iva. Hey Arjuna, O conqueror of wealth, Dhananjaya, there is no truth superior to me. There is no truth. Whatever is truth available in this world, that is just nothing but my manifestation, my partial manifestation. There is nothing, I mean, higher than me. There is no truth superior to me. Mattah parataram na anyat. Kinchidasti dhananjaya. Mai sarvam idam protam shutre maniganaiva. Krishna tells that everything is resting upon me. This to understand is very, very important. Yeah. Of course, this to understand takes many years. And but someone who's intelligent, he can understand in just a matter of second. Everything is resting upon Krishna's potency. Uh, just like a necklace is actually standing or being like kept together by a thread, and the thread is not visible. How many of you, like most of you, might have wore this type of necklace, and I also wore this particular kanthi, in which this inside that's called thread, it's not so visible. But intelligent people, they understand that because inside there is thread, that's why this whole necklace is there. Otherwise we cannot have any access. We cannot make the necklace only. Okay, so but those who are less intelligent, they find that no, uh, just what we are able to see, these are all pearls, and pearls are somehow stick, and there is no conception of thread. So Krishna is just like thread holding all those different things. Even each and every atom is actually being uh, coupled together and being arranged, and all those activities are happening by his supreme dominion. Okay, so this is a little prophetic one that we must understand. So how Krishna is actually all pervasive. Now Krishna goes ahead telling some more of his opulences. So Krishna says, Rasho hamapsi kaunteya. Arjuna, if you are able to see me, if you want to see me, then know me that I am the taste of water. The water what we drink, the pure water which quenches our thirst. So that power of quenching the thirst is also Krishna. I am the light of sun and moon. Prabhasmi Sasi Suryayoh. Then he tells Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. I am the Omkar in all those mantras in all Vedas. So all those mantras of Vedas starts with Omkara. And without Omkara, all those mantras having no efficacy, no power. Okay. So whatever the active principle of every element in this material world is actually Krishna. He tells, I am the sound in the ether. Prabhasmi Pranava Sarva Vedesu Shabda Khe Parusham Rishu. And I am the ability in man. I am natural fragrance of the earth. I am the heat in fire. I am the life of all that live. I am the austerity of all the ascetics. I am the original seed of all existence. I am the one who actually comes as seeds, and from there multiplication keeps happening until now it's happening. All those seeds, the original seed is actually Krishna. I am the intelligence of the intelligent. I am prowess of all powerful, and I am sex life, not contrary to religious principles. Okay, so we see there is nothing left out where Krishna is not there as effective factor. So direct operator of three modes, that is also Krishna, he tells. So I am actually controlling the whole material world with three modes: goodness, passion, ignorance, and above that, I am controlling this goodness, passion, and ignorance. Okay, I am also controller. I am also under full control of Krishna. Okay, so now life lesson for all of us is that Krishna is the supreme source and controller of everything. Krishna is the supreme controller and supreme source of everything. Knowing this, a sane man or a woman should fixed up in devotional service of Lord Krishna. So that's why, that's the objective of Krishna, to uh, make living entities understand that everything is working under his supreme dominion. Even somebody having the great ability, somebody having great power to speak, somebody having great power to sing, somebody having great power of anything we see. So all those qualities are actually being brought from that supreme source. As his name is Krishna. Okay, so this is a very wonderful way to remain perfectly happy in this world. There are many people, those who start fighting with each other, they start envying each other, seeing each other's quality or something. So but when we find the connection with supreme Godhead in this way, then actually the whole world can live very, very peacefully. But problem is that people, they simply see the attributes, they see the differences, but they don't see that what is the actually the source of all those things. And that's why what happens, people, they make their own different factions, parties, and they simply fight, and they make a very wonderful world a miserable world. Okay, so now we are into section third. So what's there? From 13th sloka till 19th sloka, there is mentioning of why one should take shelter of Krishna. Okay, so why one should take shelter of Krishna? So we are, because we are under full grip of material nature that we have already discussed. So at the first hand, there are 8 material elements in which we are got in, and we are embedded like this, fully handcuffed, and we are actually missed out and missing out the supreme independence and connection with Krishna. And our situation is very miserable. Okay, very, very miserable. Just like we are supposed to the controllers, we are supposed to the free free personalities do anything, whatever we feel like, to remain always happy, blissful, not dying, not getting old. So these are our real natural qualities. But because we have forgotten the supreme Godhead, that's why our situation is very dangerous. So Krishna tells that, see Arjuna, this maya means this material nature is very difficult to overcome. Very prophetic sloka he tells, 7th chapter 14th sloka. Devi hi esha gunamayi mama maya duyattaya mam eva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So people, if they see only the external attributes, things externally, but they don't see connection of supreme Godhead, then what happens? They get caught up and they suffer a lot. Okay, just like, suppose some like me, suppose me myself, Nitai Chandra Nimai Das, is going to meet his very old friend, and his my friend name is Gopal, and very very old friend. Somehow I've got his address and I want to meet with him. So I go and I knock the door in front of main gate, and after knocking the door, a very huge, I mean, bulldog comes and he start barking upon me. Wow, wow, like this, and it's almost like he's going to tear me apart. And in this situation, I'm very much fearful. What will happen to me? This I thought of meeting my friend and this heavy dog. So in this situation, what I should do? I should either start fighting with the dog and let my whole body be perfectly, scratched, and everything will be done all wrong. So this is one option. And another option is that I can immediately call out the name of my friend who is there, maybe inside. Maybe I can phone him. I can tell that, see, I just wanted to meet with you and just to come inside, but to see your dog is there and he's barking so much, madly crazy. So he can come and he can immediately say, dog, I mean Tommy, or whatever his dog's name is, and the dog will get cooled down. So this is actually the situation of ourselves. We want to live very happily. We want to live eternally. We want to live free from all days, free from all problems. But without God, that can never happen. Without getting connected with a God, that can never happen. That's what Krishna is telling here. This divine energy of mind, consisting of three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. You cannot overcome it. But those who have surrendered to me can easily cross beyond it. It's very easy for them. Okay. So life lesson for all of us is that if we want to loosen the threefold grip of illusion, then we must call out for the help of master of illusion energy, Krishna. As we saw in the previous example, that Gopal has to be called out by me. Then he comes and automatically everything gets cooled down. His dog becomes very peaceful and starts wagging its tail, seeing, understanding that he is friend of Gopal. So in this way, we also must call out the name of God. And the best way in this age of Kali Yuga is to call out name of Lord Hari by chanting the holy name Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so this is very very important life lesson for all of us from 14th sloka of this particular chapter. Still there are many people. Some people still they won't surrender to Krishna. So Krishna tells that, yeah, of course, this is the cause. This is why you must surrender. Every living entity must surrender. But there are people, those who won't surrender to me, and they have been categorized to four categories. Okay, who are they? First, they are called Mudaha. Muda means fool. So, second is called Naradama, means lowest among mankind. Third one is called those who are intelligent people, but their knowledge has been actually stolen by material nature. And fourth one is called Asurim Bhavam Ashritaha. Namam Duskritno Muda Prapaddante Naradama Maya Aparita Jnana Asuram Bhavam Ashrita. There are four types of people, those who won't surrender unto me. Okay. So there could be very big personalities having very big degrees, accolades, and everything. But if they feel like they are independent of Supreme God, they are going to get very messy and miserable life. And because they have been fooled by the pride and false ego, they hardly surrender to Supreme Lord. So they're called Maya Aparita Jnani, knowledge being stolen by illusion. Okay, like this, there are some people, they have taken the accepted the demoniac attitude to be their life and soul. Mm. They don't, they never bow down in front of Supreme God. They feel like, they are the one, they can do everything, and they have nothing in this their life to ask for and pray for. So, and there are some type of people that are called fools, means into their life, whole life, they simply work, 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 and forget about everything, just work. And they have very famous proverb or their slogan, karma hi puja hai, work is worship. And somehow that they try to put that into Bhagavad Gita, and nowhere in this Bhagavad Gita this type of proverb is written. Karma hi puja hai, or work is worship. Okay, so and they simply keep working, working, simply for little things. And after that, accumulating a lot of, amassing a lot of wealth into the bank balance, and simply without enjoying also, they simply die. Okay, so they are called fools. So there are four types of people, they won't surrender to Krishna. And also Krishna tells there are four types of people who surrender unto me, they come to me. Okay, who are they? There are still some people. In some 16 sloka, Krishna says, Artha Jigyasu Artharthi Jnani Cha Bharatar Sabha. Artho Arthartho Jigyasu Jnani. The four type of people who comes to me. Okay, who are they? So Artha means those who are in distress, those who are in some problem, they call out my name. Okay, so they are Sukriti, they are pious people. Just like we see in the example of Gajendra, he was an elephant, but still from previous life he was having some impression of little connection of Supreme God, Narayana. And even in the body of elephant, he calls out the name of Lord Narayana, and now Lord Narayana comes and he protects him. And similarly, there are artharthi, means the person who are actually want a lot of wealth. Still, that person also can go to Krishna and he can get a mass wealth, more wealth than even the proprietor of universe, Brahmaji. And the most ambitious person who went to Lord Narayana for wealth, and his name is Dhruva. Okay, he wanted the wealth, more wealth and more property than his great grandfather Brahma, and he got that. Okay, and that's still there. It's not like, you get it now and after that somebody comes and loot that all property and gone. So whatever is given by Lord Narayana is never temporary. So then there are some people jigyasu. Jigyasu means they're inquisitive. They want to know why this life miserable, who are we, where is death, what happens after death, who is God, whether God exists or not, if he exists, how he looks like, everything. So they try to just figure out, they try to search out. So they are called Jigyasu. And fourth one, and the best one among these four, is called Jnani, the seeker of knowledge. They want to know more about the knowledge. And they know that all that everything is okay. This wall is having, okay, good, it's colorful, but not so much pleasurable. So I want to get knowledge about the bliss, the happiness, the nature of Supreme Lord, nature of myself. So they are called Gyanis. Okay, so these four type of people, they actually come to Krishna. So among them, Krishna tells that those who are Gyani, they want to know about me more and more. They are very dear to me. Okay, so of course everybody have the privilege to become Gyani. I mean, to knowledgeable person knowing about Krishna as it is. So life lesson for all of us is that by the association of pure devotees, even the impious can get piety and achieve the highest destination, succeeding into their life's mission. So this piety can, anybody can have this. Anybody can catch this piety. Anybody can actually access to this piety by the association of pure Vaishnavas like Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, he went to USA. It's a history that in USA hardly people had any connection with this divine knowledge, and people were into so many all different types of nefarious activities. And by his association, lakhs of people are actually, they understood their real nature, what is their relation with Supreme Lord, and they actually achieved to the transcendental platform to be connected with Supreme Lord Krishna. Okay, so now let's go ahead to our section 4, in which there is mentioning of demigods worship an impersonal hang-up. So what is this? So even though Krishna tells that I can give you anything, whoever wants anything I can give, but still there are some people, they go to the, I mean, the lesser authorities than Krishna, who are actually uh, demigods, or we can say gods, like Indra, Chandra, Surya. So like this, why they go there? Okay, the reasons are why some people, they go to demigods instead of Krishna. Instead, in spite of going to Krishna, they go to demigods. So Krishna tells very clearly, Tad bhavati alpamedasaha. Their intelligence is stolen by material desires. They are not able to recognize that Krishna only is the ultimate provider of their desires. Everything is actually coming from Yagyapati, Narayana, or Krishna. And through those demigods of whose someone is worshipping, doing worship, they actually provide. Okay, so the demigods provide to their devotees, and ultimately the Supreme Lord Narayana only provides all those necessities of every living entity. Okay, so because they're having less buddhi, less intelligence, so somehow they get enamored by this. And Krishna as Paramatma make their faith stable for particular demigod they worship. So Krishna is not like, you must worship me. Krishna as a Paramatma is there in everyone, all of us. But still, he gives the chance to the living entity. It's your option whether you want to come to me for perfect happiness, eternal joy, or else you want to make your own khichdi. Okay, doing whatever you feel like. So Krishna make that faith also intact. Whatever you feel like you want to do, Krishna make that faith also stable, so that one can slowly he can understand what is what. Okay, so why someone worship demigods? Because they want to fulfill their sensual desires very immaturely and quickly. Okay, so it's all about desires. Okay, desires everybody have, but if somebody is asking immaturely poison to be like nectar, if somebody asks, somebody want nectar, but he goes and asks, land up asking poison. So this is called immaturity. So Supreme Lord Narayana is father of every living entity. He gives everything very intelligently. Whatever is best for us, he will surely provide us, but not for, it's not for demigods. Demigods, whatever one goes to ask for, immediately it's sanctioned. Okay, demigods, they don't see that whether it is good for him or not. So they just give this. This has happened many times. Like this is the example of Lord Shiva. So there was a person called Bhasmashur. He wanted to have this of uh, boon of breaking, or no, just burning out, blasting anybody's head, upon whose head this Bhasmasur will put his hand. So you can understand that of what type of weird and crazy type of boons these people they ask. And Lord Shiva saying, so yeah, tatastu, so it be. So this is what had happened. And this fellow Bhasmasur immediately started chasing Lord Shiva himself, and Lord Shiva has to run away from there somehow, that saving his life, and ultimately approaching Lord Vishnu only. Narayana, please save me this useless fellow, to whom I give this such a nefarious boon. He wanted this. I've given it. So Lord Vishnu also told that, why did you give this type of boons to your devotees? You should not have given it. So these people are actually okay, but their intelligence are very less. They don't understand that Supreme Father from where everything is coming. They He only must be worshipped. Okay, so the less points. I mean, what is this? The loss points for demigod worshippers are these three loss points. What are there? Their fruits are limited. Whatever they get, very limited. Whatever they feel like, that much, how much they can concept, that much only they can get, even lesser only. Their desired fruits are temporary. Whatever they get from this worship is very, very temporary. Today they get, and tomorrow they are again uh, like that, even lower than that. Okay, why? Because demigods, they actually manipulate our own karma. Our karma only they manipulate. Like suppose now maybe now I was supposed to be a little poverty stricken, and immediately I want money. So what demigods they do, they they see that this person having into his karma great wealth, maybe after 15 years. So they just shift that to now. And after 15 years, they're going to be again miserable life. Okay, so they want to separately more than what our karma actually gives, but they simply shift it. Okay, but it's not for the Narayana. Okay, Narayana can give beyond our imagination, beyond our karma. Okay, so that's what we have seen in many examples, like in Dhruva Maharaj and as such. So now let's go ahead. Life lesson from all of us from this slides is that whatever we want, we must approach to Supreme Godhead alone. Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udardi tivrena bhakti yogena. So that's when whatever we want, we must approach to Supreme Godhead alone. And then what will happen? Everything will happen good. Okay, be sure. Like suppose if a small little child, if he goes to his father, real father, understand, a real father, if he goes to his real father and he asks that, Father, can you give me, can you give me chocolate? So if you find, yeah, it's good for him to get chocolate, so he gives. If somebody, that particular child goes to Supreme, his father, the real father, and asks that, can you give me cigarette? Then he'll give one slap. But if he goes to uncle and asks that, uncle, you are so good, you are so nice, you are as equal as my father, can you give me cigarette? Then he will get, his uncle will get a little puffed up, and he feel like, no, I should somehow butter this little guy, and he may give the cigarette too, if uncle is not so good. Okay, he's not so connected and really not genuinely well-wishing uncle. Okay, so whatever we want, we must approach to Supreme Godhead alone. Okay, so now there are some hang up for the impersonalist. What they say, that Supreme God Krishna is now personal, but actually he's impersonal. Okay, he's simply light. Okay, so there are some people who take up the impersonal conception of Lord to be all. Okay, so they are called अबुद्धयः अव्यक्तं व्यक्तिमापन्नं मन्यन्ते माम बुद्धयः परं भावमजानन्तो मम अव्ययम् अनुत्तमम्. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of God Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. So there are some people, they consider the impersonal conception is ultimate. Okay, impersonal conception is ultimate. Krishna is just manifestation from impersonal conception. Okay, impersonal conception has personalized. Okay, but it's other way around. Impersonal light is actually coming from Krishna, the person. Okay, so that's why it is mentioned here. You can find avyaktam vyaktimapannam. That say that it was before avyaktam and now vyakti, means the personal form has come. Okay, manyante, they consider, it's not truth. Manyante mam, they consider me abuddhaya, having no buddhi. So those who worship demigods, they are having little buddhi. But those who are actually having impersonal conception, Krishna has told them frankly, abuddhaya, they have no intelligence at all. So Krishna was impersonal before. They considered to be like that. They considered Krishna to be like that. Krishna was impersonal before, and now he has become personal. So Krishna now has taken up the personal form now. So life lesson from this particular slides. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is ultimate truth, not the impersonal expansion of Krishna. Okay, so Krishna, the personality, is the absolute truth. Okay, from him comes the Brahma Jyoti, the light. Then why this intense, why these transcendentalists not able to know Krishna? So this is the question. Like, of course, somebody is normal, any ordinary man, but there are people, those who actually Brahmavadis, they consider the Krishna is ultimately impersonal. Krishna tells that why they are not able to understand me, because I cover myself for them. I cover their vision with avidya. Naham prakasa sarvasya yoga maya samavrita. I cover myself with yoga maya and with their eyes with mahamaya. And this, in this way, they are not able to understand me. So life lesson is that Krishna can be seen not by mental speculation, as we have seen, but only through being chosen by Krishna to be seen. That can happen only by performing devotional service. So Krishna, if consider us, that yeah, this person can be, this person I can show myself to him. Okay, so then Krishna can appear. By our own mental endeavor, It's not possible at all. Okay. So and what is that? What is that way? That's called bhakti. Okay. That's what it's told. Uh, Nama Guna Adi, that particular shloka, I'm just not able to bring it in my memory. So only through bhakti, only by devotion, one can actually get to this position where Krishna bounds, Krishna get forced by himself to be revealed, okay, to that particular devotee. Okay, so now we are in the last section of our today's discussion, section 5, devotion across delusion. Okay, so what is this from 26 to 27 sloka? So Krishna tells, myself being the supreme personality of God, I know everything, past, present, and future. Okay, but most of the people are by born into delusion. They hardly having any power to conceive me. They are born into duality. They have something to uh, get attached with, something to do abhor with. People are bound with pleasure and pain. There's something they like, something they don't like, and sometimes they feel like, okay, they're so nice, and sometimes they like become miserable, and something they've considered to be theirs, something they consider to be others, something. So in this way they are perfectly into delusion, and in this way they are simply have forgotten me, that everything is actually originated from me. In this way they are not able to know me. So Krishna ultimately is telling Arjuna that, oh Arjuna, those living entities, those who are actually has worked, I mean, they have acted very piously in their previous life and in this life also, they people can very rigidly be engaged in my devotion. Okay. So Krishna tells, yes, Sam tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda moha nirmukta bhajante mam dhridvata. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from duality of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Okay. So life lesson from this particular section, not even, and sorry, there's one some article mistake here. A blade of grass moves without sanction of Krishna. Okay, Krishna is in full control. Okay, so in this way, the intelligent people knowing this engages in pure devotion of Lord Krishna. Okay, being freed from all sins, get fixed up in relation with Krishna. Okay, so now let's go to the summary. So in first we discussed the two ways of getting knowledge, descending and ascending. In that we saw how ascending is faulty and descending is the perfect way of getting knowledge. And also we saw hearing is the beginning as well, the perfect way, the most important factor of bhakti yoga. Okay, among 9 limbs of bhakti that we saw very quickly. So Sravanam is the first and foremost. Okay, then second section, we saw how Krishna is encompassing everything practically, visible or invisible. There are 8 external energy manifestation: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And there is internal energy of Krishna which is superior than this external energy, which is called ourself, we, Atma. Okay, we ourselves, the cognizant beings. So we are all energies of the Supreme Lord, but we are being actually being manipulated by dead matter, external inferior energy, because we have forgotten Krishna. Okay, so why we should take shelter of Krishna? There we saw the example of a dog. You must have remembered. Krishna tells that this energy is very difficult to overcome, Arjuna. Whoever surrenders, whoever thinks, whoever remembers me becomes immediately they immediately surpass this illusory energy. Okay, so yeah, 4 types of people. We saw the 4 types of people, they surrender to Krishna. The 4 types of people, they won't surrender to Krishna. Okay, there are some people, those who goes to demigods. Why do they go to demigods? There we saw that because their mind, their memory, their buddhi, their intelligence is actually having taken away by little sensuous impetuses. Okay, and they want to have their desires fulfilled very quickly. And in this way they get the fruits, they get those all those desires fulfilled, but problem is that those all are limited as well as very very temporary. Okay, and ultimately gives a lot of problem. And at last we see how every living entity must start doing devotion to Supreme Lord Krishna, getting beyond, getting away, getting out of every type of delusion. Okay, and before that also we saw the two types of conceptions: demigod worship and the impersonal conception. In that we saw that how impersonal is the thing, that everything is light and from light Krishna has come, but it's not true. Krishna himself has perfectly while I mean has rejected this type of conception. He says those people having no brain, they consider like this: actually myself is always there, I never take birth, I never come out from any light or something. Okay, rather light, the impersonal Brahmajyoti is the origin actually, and that's me. Okay, that's comes in further chapters. In 11th chapter Krishna tells that aham pratisthaham brahma, brahmano hi pratisthaham, he tells. Okay, so the impersonal light is also having its origin into Krishna. Okay, so this is all from today, 7th chapter. So thank you so much for joining today's discussion, and it's really very encouraging for me that you are there for whole 1 hour practically with this 7th chapter discussion. Thank you so much. So I like to request you all that if you are chanting the holy name, so you can write down in the group that, like, in evening time, whatever time you have chanted, you can write down that how many times you have chanted the holy name of Krishna. So if you have any problem chanting the holy name of Krishna, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, uh, if you need some assistance, some some guidelines or something, then we are always ready to help you. So please let us know something more about that, and please ask if you have any questions, queries, you can ask in the groups. And please let us know that how many times you have chanted Hare Krishna Mantra in a particular day. So it will be a very wonderful experience for all of us to see that all of our participants, all of our colleagues are actually taking up this process of devotion. Okay, so Dipti Ranjan Bedbak is telling 108 times. That's very great. So all this is I want is in WhatsApp group. Okay, so that's really very encouraging for all of us, all of the participants in the group. Okay, so please go ahead with that. Whatever you have chanted in the whole day, you can actually post there in group. Okay, so that will be very much encouraging for all of us. Okay, thank you so much. Hare Krishna. We will be meeting again next week. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.